Okay, I'm making this video to explain my new model for how I think you could build a model for a brain, like a virtual brain in like a virtual reality. Now, the reason why I think that it would be better to build a virtual brain in a virtual reality is because robotics isn't really flexible enough to be able to do all the things that we want a human intellect to do, which is more to do with the mechanical fluidity of a body. Because in virtual reality, um, they you can do a lot more. Like mostly it's the visual perception. So the thing is that in virtual reality you have a lot of detail, and the avatar can actually move its body in a physics simulation, where it can actually accomplish goals that normally would, in the real reality, would take a long time and a lot of learning experience to deal with. Because when a child is like learning that the Play-Doh is all smushy, and like the cup has all the water in it, you pour 2 cups into one big cup, and it has the same amount of water and all that. So the thing is that, like, in virtual reality, um, you can actually do some of those things, but not mostly, not all of those things, because like physics simulations. But I think that it'll eventually get there in virtual reality. And the thing is that it just seems that you can do a lot more in virtual reality. So so past that topic, in virtual reality, um, a virtual brain would be similar to how our brains are, in that it would be a learning process. And so the learning process is causality. So it's just that, like, if you know that this causes this, and then they go together. And but the thing is that in when in the human brain, we are actually perceiving a lot of area with peripheral vision and like focus, like the cornea in the center where it has color vision. And so the thing is that a lot of things go together in a parallelized fashion, in a not a serial fashion. So the thing is that, like, when we are thinking in a serialized way, like language, it's actually a descriptor of the flow of events, whereas we use that to just describe things. So well, I have this picture here. Someone posted, where it says that, like, in English, you have a subject, verb, object. So if you were to say that Jeremy ate ice cream, would be English. But in Hebrew and Egyptian, it would be ate Jeremy ice cream. And in Japanese, it would be Jeremy ice cream ate. And so the thing is that basically words in language have to follow that a grammatical structure, whereas you're describing something. So, like, if you could say that, okay, language is a way of communication, so that has meaning, because it's referencing all the other words. That, like, language means something, but it's a higher order understanding. It's more abstract and ambiguous. So, like, language includes, like, all 7,000 languages on the planet, and it's condensed into one word. So the thing is that language is an abstraction of causality. So you say that, oh, well, this language has subject, verb, object in English, then that's an abstraction of how language works in referencing to itself. And so it's language becomes self-referential in that sense. And so the thing is that the brain understands causality, and language is a way to express that to other people when they know things. So like you say, like, oh, Nintendo is the best video game ever, or the best video game system ever, then the person that knows what a Nintendo is and knows what all the other consoles are will say, well, from my experience of my understanding of playing Nintendos and Xboxes and PlayStations, that I just find that I can play PlayStation better than the Nintendo, and I like it better. And so that's an experience of an actual experience where you're actually handling a game system, and you're figuring it out, and you're playing it, and you're experimenting, and you're doing all these things to learn, because in a video game you're learning how to do something, just like in real life with the little kid in the Play-Doh and stuff. And so the thing is that in the brain, when it has memories, and the memory is actually trying to stabilize its view of the environment. So when you actually look out into the environment, it's not all random. It's actually has a stability to it through perception. And so perception is just like being able to match what's coming in to what's going out. So when I pick up this pen and I say, oh, like I can write with it and all those things, it's like it has a function to it that goes into the perception through the ears, and the ears are a language used for perception, and it has to be the 3D 3D perception through sound, or 3D perception through vision, and so inside the brain, when it's first developing, it's not very stable because it hasn't built up enough when the brain is wiring itself when it's very young. Usually the frontal lobes are the part that are sending the signals backward into the vision area and the sound area and the touch, sensory motor cortex. And so when that happens, is that it's constantly cycling, where there's waves of energy going back and forth. And so the waves of energy that are in the frontal lobes are all mixed up when you're young, and so the frontal lobes are not developed, and so it's just sending random noise and stuff back to the perceptual areas. And so that means that when they match up, that means that you're actually building a more stable model in the back of your brain, whereas where the vision areas are, and in the temporal lobes where the sound is. So the thing is that when the noise is coming from the front to the back, that's actually conditioning how stable the model is. And also from the output with the hands, where you're touching things, and you're looking at mom and dad, and mom and dad are telling you, okay, Jimmy, that's a walrus in the zoo, and walruses like to swim and eat fish and stuff like that, and they do tricks like in SeaWorld and something like that. And so I guess that when the noise is going backward into the perceptual areas are actually sending feedback back to the frontal lobes. And so the thing is that when the frontal lobes are wired in such a way to actually hold ideas inside its head. So when you're holding a thought in your head, you're actually there's a mechanism in there that's actually that pays attention. So the thing is that when you think, oh, there's a block over there, and there's a banana on the top shelf, and if I put the block next to the shelf, I can stand on the block and get the banana. And so the thing is that all that has to do with working memory. So in working memory, you're actually accessing what you know in the moment with what you already have in the built-up perceptual models. So when you have working memory, you're thinking, okay, there's an object, and I know what this object can do, and I know that there's a problem over there that I want the banana on the shelf, and so I know that I can stand on the block, and I know that the distance between me and the banana will be shorter than if I'm not standing on the block, and that means that I can get the banana by putting the block next to the shelf and standing on it. And so that's a causal mechanism, sort of like language. And so I use language to describe all that so that you actually have a reference in your perceptual areas that the frontal lobes are accessing in that way. And so that's the mechanism of intelligence. And so now people have been trying to build models of the perceptual areas, and we already know how working memory has the mechanism for accessing the memories that are the models built up over time, and the immediate awareness of what's out there at the time. And so the thing is that the more objects you can hold in your mind at the same time is that the more that you're holding an object in your mind. Okay, let's say this is the block and then there's a banana on the shelf, and so you're aware of just like in language, subject, verb, action. Jeremy ate ice cream. Jeremy got on top of the block and he got the banana. And so so you're holding those objects in your mind and you're comparing them. Okay, there's a block over there. There's a banana over there. And so you associate the block with the banana, because like if you're saying, okay, well, last time I was able to get the banana by using a block, but there's no block in my immediate vicinity. But I do remember that there was a block in the other room, and so I'll go over there and get the block in the other room and bring it over here to get the banana. And so so you're holding that in your mind. So the thing is that, like, at first you just see the block and you interact with the block, so you know what the block can do, and that's in your memory. And you see the banana, and you know that the banana is something you want to eat because you ate the banana for, so you know what a banana is for. And you just put those things together inside your head. So the thing is that when you see the banana next time, you already have in your memory that the block was associated with how you got the banana last time. And so the thing is that when you don't see the block around, you can just say, okay, well, there's a banana over there, and I remember I got the banana with the block last time. So there's no block right now, and I'll just go look for a block, and then I can do it. And so the thing is that the brain with intelligence is holding all those things, all your memories, trying to solve a problem. And so when you're solving the problem, you have your immediate environment, what the problem is, and then all the associations in your mind of how you did it. And so the thing is, like, when you're solving a new problem, you have to come up with novel solutions. So the thing is that you're holding the banana in your mind, and so that's the object. You have the banana in your mind, and so the thing is that you're not accessing one memory at a time. You're not saying, okay, the banana was was here yesterday. The banana was on the table. The banana was on the shelf. The banana was on the floor. The banana was on the ground. But the thing is that with the memory is that when you're holding the object in your mind, banana, you're holding banana as the object in your mind. And then you find all the associations subconsciously that have to do with the banana. So the thing is that when you're solving a problem, what happens is you have the banana, you have the block, and so all the associations are happening in the subconscious at the same time. This is, you have the banana on the shelf, and everything associated with the banana. And so the biggest problem of building a brain model in a virtual reality has to do with how the same problem as how the mind in a brain accesses the memory and brings it to what needs to be solved. And so the thing is that your mind is storing all these memories of how you solved problems in the past, and all the objects and yourself, and like other people are selves. So like there would be the subject would be Kimberly, or the subject would be Lewis, and everything that they can do is in your memory, and everything you can do is in your memory, from body memory. So kinesthetic memory. So there's all the different memory parts of your brain, and your frontal lobes are putting all those things together by having a focal point of what goes after what. And so the same thing for the language areas, is that it's creating a sequence that's rolling out of what has to be done. And so in steps. But the thing is that the memory does it in parallel. So like there's two items in the left, and two items in the right, and two items in the left. And so the thing is that it's comparing those items, going along with what you're dealing with at the moment. So like, okay, like this item is in my immediate, so I have like a pen, pencil, paper, and a tablet, like so you can use a pen to write on the tablet. You can use a pen, but you can't use the ink from the pen to write on the tablet. You have to do this the soft side. And so the thing is that in the frontal lobes you have two objects on the right and two objects on the left, and it's constantly comparing to the outside world and your memories of what those items can do in a subconscious fashion. And so that has to do with actually the setup of the white matter tracks going from the frontal lobes to the other frontal lobe areas, and going backwards to the parietal lobe and the occipital lobe, and language in these areas. So the thing is that it's all interconnected, and that's a wiring diagram. Now, I don't actually know how the diagram of that would be in place, but the thing I'm going to talk about now is actually the wiring of it is all important, because you're developing all the areas at the same time when you're growing up. And so what I'm talking about now is has to do with so this would be how all the areas are connected inside the brain, and then the next step would be how so it's a sheet. There's sheets all around the brain, and so the little parts right here is actually how the memories are formed at a bottom-up level. So what's happening is that an axon is going in, there's a sheet right here, and information is going into the sheet. And so what happens is that the sheet is constantly refreshing itself, it's constantly generating noise. And so the thing is that when it's receiving a signal from the axon going into the sheet, it's receiving a signal that's going inward. It has to send a signal outward. And so the thing is that, like I said, that the frontal lobes are generating noise, and the noise has to go to the perceptual areas, and that's a reinforcement. So like when you're walking down the street, there's a cycle of left, right, left, right, left, right, and so that's a cycle. And so when the sheet is receiving a signal, it has to send out messages that it gets feedback and it gets reinforcement. So the thing is that the signal it sends out will either be reinforced or it will be disassociated. So the thing is that the sheet is generating noise along in the local areas that it's branching outward to so it's comparing the signal going in and the signal going out, and so the signal, so when it's comparing that, it has to, through reinforcement of the noise that's being generated. And so the thing is that when you're confused, it means that the noise is not stable. But once it stabilizes, like when you become an adult and your frontal lobes develop, then that means that you're able to actually send the right signal, and that signal is actually the reinforcement. So the frontal lobes are receiving signals from the perception, and the perception are receiving signals from the frontal lobes. And so the thing is that the frontal lobes are stabilizing what it can do. It's the impulse control. So the frontal lobes are saying, okay, go, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. And so and so that's like when you're walking, you're doing this leg first, then that leg second, and then that the next leg third, and the next leg fourth. And so the reinforcement stabilizes the noise going in and out. And so what happens is that once it stabilizes, it can actually build a library of signals it can generate. And so once it has a library of signals it can generate, it sends out those so it's receiving a signal saying, okay, there's a chair over there, and I'm going to send out a signal that says sit in the chair. And then after that it says, okay, there's a knife right there and there's a fork right there. I'm going to send out a signal that says eat food. Eat food with the knife and the fork. And so that's and the knife and the fork would be a subset of the signals below that. And so like Ray Kurzweil says, that there's a hierarchy, but the hierarchy is building up on itself on the signals that are being reinforced. So when you first encounter a knife, or you first encounter a fork, or you first encounter Play-Doh, you don't really have signals that you can send out, and so you just send out random signals to test things. And once you have the random signals, you but the thing is that there's only one connection going outward and one connection going inward. So the thing is that this little clump of cells has to get signals from the rest of the cortex to build up a library of signals it can send out. So it's okay. So the thing is that once it encounters a signal that it does not recognize, it has to send it has to either send out signals that are most similar to it with a variation of what the signal is sending out. So the thing is, like, it might look like a fork, but it's actually a spoon. So the thing is that you can hold a spoon and you can hold a fork, but the spoon will be able to hold liquid and the fork won't be able to hold liquid. So the thing is that when you don't know that the spoon can hold liquid, you have to send out a variation of what, so the fork can hold stuff and the spoon can hold stuff, but the spoon can hold more than the fork can because it can hold liquids. So you send out the signal that says, okay, try scooping things up. And so it's all experimentation, because the little clump of cells that have the input going in and going out within the sheet is building up in that area. Okay, I have a library of signals I can send out. Send out the most relevant. Send out the signals that are most similar to signals that I'm receiving. And as that happens, it can build up a variation of a new signal it can send out if it encounters something new, like a spoon instead of a fork. And so so the thing is that when that happens, is that all this can happen in an avatar in a virtual reality, because the basic fact of it is that you have to have a way of finding out what can happen through the wiring of everything wired together, but then you have to build up libraries in each part of the neocortex that's trying to stabilize its signal pattern by experimentation of sending out signals randomly to build up new libraries, so that it can actually develop what it can to learn things. And so once you're able to learn, then it doesn't matter whether it's in real reality or virtual reality. But the thing is that I think you can learn a lot more in virtual reality, because it's a lot more flexible environment you can do stuff in. So the thing is that, like, in order to build up a brain model, it has to have the wiring diagrams, which because like the thing is that, like, chimpanzees don't have the right wiring. Their frontal lobes are not set up to actually hold thoughts in the mind and then relate that to what can happen through language and through social feedback, and but it can build and this is why I actually made this video, is because I know that that's how the brain works, is that it builds up models of what it can do and what can't happen through reinforcement of the libraries throughout the cortex. And so that builds up layers. And so, like, as you become more mature and you learn more, that those layers actually stabilize perception, and they stabilize what can and can't be done experimentally. And they also, since they're abstract, like how I said that, like, language is about subject, object, verb, and that becomes self-referential. And that's also how imagination works, is that once you cut off the perception, then it internally generates what it can going backwards. And since there's no perception, it's overridden, because the perception is always going forward, and it can't go back enough to imagine things. So the thing is that semantically, you don't have pictures of words. You actually, like, when I'm talking right now, it's just coming out like in a series, and I don't see any pictures or anything like that. But the thing is, imagination, it goes backwards and creates all this stuff. And so the thing is that when it becomes self-referential, it's actually developing things internally. And so yeah, getting back to why I made this video is that I think that all this can be done in a computer with cellular automata, because that's basically what a computer is. That like one time I was sleeping and I went outside, and then I came back inside, and then all of a sudden I noticed, oh, the lights are blinking, and so that made me realize that right now I'm attuned to the light bulb in the ceiling. I'm attuned to the blue light on my computer, but when I go outside, I get a faster signal rate from the sun, and that means that when I come back into my house, I see the flickering lights, and so I noticed that I'm not adjusted to it anymore because I saw a faster flicker rate from the sun than I did from my computer and my the fluorescent light in my ceiling in my room. And so I made this video because I needed to explain all this, because I can't really develop an avatar with the ability to get the signals going into it and going out to it. That would be way more than I could do, but I do think it's possible, because it just has to do with numbers. So like you could have a value between 1 and 100, and that would be the signal going in, and then the signal it would be able to, well, it's sort of like a liquid simulation. When you see the liquid going, it's all fluid. So the thing is that the avatar's mind doesn't have to be rigid. It can be a fluid simulation, whereas its mind is flowing like our minds. And that would require a virtual nervous system. It would require virtual hands and virtual touch and virtual smiling and the facial features, and that would all be fluid. It wouldn't be rigid like the robots they have right now that keep falling down a lot, and they can't vacuum and they can't cook. But just like you go to a video game and they cast a magic spell and it's all fluid and stuff like that. And so the thing is that the way you would develop a virtual avatar that would be intelligent would be to actually have the numbers be fluid, as in a fluid simulation, but it would build up layers of abstraction of how it's to become self-referential with language equals subject object verb, or subject verb object, and all the ways it can be. And so I have been trying to figure this out, how to create it inside a computer. It's just that I don't have the wiring diagram of how the mind working memory. So I don't know how to model working memory, but if I did, I would be able to put it into a cellular automata that would be fluid in its reaction to its virtual environment.